I know there has been some anxiety about the impact safety measures will have on the Christmas holidays. We are going to work with universities to make sure that all students are supported to return home safely and spend Christmas with their loved ones if they choose to do so.
Education Secretary Gavin Williamson there, promising students they'll be able to go home for Christmas if they want to, and haven't tested positive for coronavirus already, or have been in close contact with someone else who has. It will, though, lower some of the anxiety of thousands of parents who feared coronavirus outbreaks at halls of residence would mean their children would have to self-isolate and possibly miss being home over the festive season. Our editorial column says it's a welcome break for a generation that's being hammered by this pandemic.
Schools shut, exams collapsed into chaos, jobs are vanishing. Now universities are struggling, undergraduates are paying fees and high rents, but social life is limited, and so is face-to-face tuition. It's tough, unfair, and not their fault. You can't expect them to be locked up while everyone else in the area is still allowed out to the pub. Nor is this the time to talk about banning Christmas, so it is good that today the government has ruled out a quarantine.
But what happens next? Our deputy political editor Nicholas Cecil is here. Nicholas, this decision means potentially thousands of people will be crossing the country to get home for Christmas, potentially as coronavirus peaks again. How's the government going to do that?
Gavin Williamson this lunchtime clarified that students will be able to come home for Christmas under the government's plans. But these plans are very much a work in progress. Very much what they've decided on is a point of principle here that they want students to be able to come home during the festive season. In some cases, if people do test positive, or if they're in close contact with other people who've got COVID, then they may have to self-isolate at university for a period. They're the same rules that apply to all of us. The idea is that the university term will end long enough before the Christmas break, before Christmas time, that people will be able to do that self-isolation and then still get home for Christmas. What
would have happened if he hadn't made this clarification? How angry are students right now?
Well, I think if the government had tried to enforce the students having to stay at university over the Christmas period, I think there would have been mutiny. It would be very, very difficult to enforce. How can you do this? Would the police be going around finding families for having their loved ones home for Christmas? I suspect many families and many students would just ignore that rule.
So we have clarity here up to a point, but the Prime Minister himself has been struggling with the new rules and regulations, hasn't he, Nick?
Yes, well, certainly Gavin Williamson cleared up one confusion this morning, but as soon as he cleared up one confusion, along came another government confusion. This is over new rules which are being applied in the northeast, which ban mixing of households in Northumberland, Newcastle, Gateshead, Sunderland and County Durham and a couple of other places. But the confusion arose over whether you can pop down the pub to have a pint with your mates in the pub garden. The Prime Minister was asked about this, and he started talking about the rule of six.
On the rule of six, outside the areas where, such as the northeast, where extra measures have been brought in, it's 6 inside, 6 outside, and in the northeast and other areas where extra tight measures have been brought in, you should follow the guidance of local authorities. But it's 6 in a home or 6 in hospitality, but as I understand it, not 6 outside.
Which isn't the relevant legislation in this case. He later apologised, saying he misspoke. So at least he's tried to clear this one up quickly. But it's another dent in the government's authority and in this crucial issue of trust. The government needs to be trusted by the public that it is handling this pandemic properly, because it's got to persuade the public to follow the rules and the laws that it is proposing.
Meanwhile, globally, the number of people who have died following contracting a COVID-19 infection has crossed the 1 million mark. How concerned are doctors here in this country about what's ahead?
I think they're very concerned. Most doctors and scientists say that the epidemic will grow. And we had some interesting words from Dr. David Nabarro, who's the World Health Organization's coronavirus envoy for Europe. He was saying that London can still avoid the full impact of a second wave, but it can't really avoid the spread of this epidemic. So he's saying it's very much down to us and whether all Londoners can actually follow the social distancing rules and the good hygiene rules, because then we can reduce the intensity of the epidemic as it spreads, so we won't feel the full impact of it. So that would mean fewer cases and fewer deaths. But he's saying Londoners have got to follow the rules and guidance.